I want to bring in Reagan Economic Adviser Art Laffer and Steve Moore, Trump Economic Advisor, two of the architects of Trump's initial economic plan. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Maria.
Congratulations to you both. Your team won.
Yeah. Oh, Steve Moore deserves enormous credit. He was out there campaigning everywhere for Trump. He's just phenomenal.
And Steve, not just campaigning, but also communicating a message of his plan. Now, Donald Trump yesterday said that he's expecting to double growth. Can you really turn 2% growth into 4% growth in a short period of time?
It'd take probably a year. Arthur's the expert on this, but I would just correct something you said earlier. You said we would, I think you said we would raise growth by 1.1%.
On top of our current growth.
Yeah, I think we can do better than that.
Great, great. All right, perfect.
So you think you can do a double? How do you get there?
I think we can get 2 percentage point more growth. I think we get 1 percentage point more growth from the tax plan, just as Reagan did, Arthur, and I think we can get another percentage point growth out of energy production. We can produce about $150 billion more coal, oil, and gas. It's been, virtually shut down by a lot of Obama's regulations, and we can get rid of those. So, Arthur, I think we can do what you guys did in the Reagan administration. I think we can get that growth rate up almost double to what it is today.
Especially, Art, when you talk about rolling back regulations, right?
Yeah, well, if you want to do what Reagan did, we had 6, 7, 8%, 9% real growth rates on a quarterly basis.
Right.
Once the tax cuts took effect.
Great point.
I don't see why you shouldn't do just as well as we did. Obama is a lot worse than Jimmy Carter, and you guys can really make it fly.
Well, there's an attitude out there among a lot of the more liberal economists, and this has been the line for the last few years. You've heard this, Dagan. What do they call it? Secular stagnation.
Right.
This is the best we can do.
2%
is, yeah, right. And I totally reject that, Arthur. I think we can get to 4.
Totally
you're
wrong.
right. I'm very rarely seen as not bullish enough, but you're right. Reagan, I think there were quarters when you had 8% growth under Reagan. Why can't we do that again? Just burst out of the gate with this economic growth agenda and see quarters of maybe 6 or 7% and have a 4% growth path for the next 4 or 5 years.
Reassure ideological conservatives that Donald Trump is president with a Republican-controlled House and Senate, that you're not going to spend money recklessly, that you're not going to spend money to the point that you drive up our national debt even more than where it is. Because I think that that's a legitimate concern.
Sure.
Politicians, now Donald Trump isn't a politician, or wasn't until the middle of last year, but they love to spend money,
That's
and he
for sure.
loves to spend money on stuff like infrastructure.
You want to take that,
Dagan?
Arthur?
Let me take that, Dagan. We had a real problem when we came in with Reagan. If you have a welfare program when the economy's in bad shape, it's really essential for the families to have that. Once you get the economic growth going, once you're 2, 3, 4 years into a huge boom, then you can cut it back, because school lunch programs are a luxury, not a necessity. So I would wait before we made a big attack on bringing spending down for at least 2 years during that growth period. Then you can bring it down like mad without hurting people.
Yeah, Arthur, I think that's exactly what we're talking about right now, is really concentrating on getting the tax cut down first, like in entitlements. Everybody says, well, why isn't it going to cut entitlements? Now, by the way, we are going to get rid of one of the worst entitlements of all, which is Obamacare. And this is a point that he made in the debate. And, you trim those costs. We think we can reduce health care costs of Obamacare by about 30% and cover everyone and give them superior care.
What's the replacement?
Competition. Let people.
It's amazing.
Just open the marketplace, right?
Okay.
So legalize all forms of insurance, so people can go out there and buy disaster insurance, and that's the way. You don't need to completely replace it. But gentlemen, I think the message is great. I loved his 2 economic speeches that he gave, especially in Detroit. Really turned around his campaign. But investors are looking at this market, and there is so much bullish sentiment. But can you guys manage investors' expectations? Because this we're not just going to walk in.
Now there is, after all the hysteria.
Right. So how long will this take? Help us manage expectations. Should we expect this within a year?
Can you do it tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly.
Steve, I'm going to quote Steve Moore on this. He wrote about it. The Reagan stock market recovery was the greatest story never told. We had an increase in real values of the stock market from the beginning of Reagan to on, over 700% increase. That's the type of asset appreciation you really want in this world. And Steve, you've been promoting that perfectly in this campaign.
I just have a problem with that, because you look at what happened with the central bank here in the United States. They've inflated that significantly. That was Obama's only policies to create the wealth effect, and that's why he did quantitative easing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, Arthur, I'd say it hasn't worked. I mean, you know, how many times have we talked about this on your show, Maria? We've had, what, 7, almost 8 years of zero interest rate policies from the Fed, flooding the economy with cheap money, and that was their economic agenda, and look what it got us, you know, 1.5% growth.
That's
right.
When I say entitlements, though, I mean Social Security and
I know
Medicare.
you do.
Okay, so I'm going to sit around for 4 years and ride both of you mercilessly about doing something about it, because Reagan had the gumption and the guts and the power to do something about Social Security.
You're right. How many Democrats do you think there are in Congress, in the entire House and Senate, that will work with us to cut Social Security and Medicare?
Well,
exactly.
You want me to do it again?
It's a trap.
None.
Until
It's
the
zero.
Democrats get serious about saying, okay, we have some reform plans. And, you know, when you talk about Social Security with them, they only have one policy. You know what that is.
Expand it.
Expand it and raise the payroll tax.
Right.
We're not, Arthur, we're not going to raise that payroll tax.
So you're going to be.
But let me, Steve,
go ahead,
if I can, I've gotten a number of calls from Democrats over the last 2 days of saying they really do want to work with us on some of these policies.
I agree.
They understand what you are saying, Steve, and that you're right. They really do.
Especially
they may not
on the
say
business.
it publicly.
Sorry, Arthur, I think you're especially right on the tax cut. I mean, remember, how many Democrats did you get in the House with that Reagan tax cut?
Huge.
I mean, yeah.
We got, when we did the big one in 1986, we got 97 senators on our side, only 3 against us.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you're going to want to take advantage of the fact that you have both chambers now to actually get as much done as possible.
You better believe it,
But you
Maria.
need 60 votes. I mean, look, you do need 60 votes in the Senate. What are Republicans at? 52 or something like that? I think there's a couple
52.
still out. But, you know, so you were. But I think we do the business tax cut. I'm going to make this prediction. I think we can get, Arthur, 10 or 15 Democrats in the Senate to go for a business tax cut that brings the repatriated capital, and then we use some of that money for infrastructure. That's a bipartisan package.
People talk about Chuck Schumer. Donald Trump knows Chuck Schumer very well from him being the senator here from New York for so many years. And I think Chuck Schumer specifically said Obamacare, they should have focused on reviving the economy before they shoved through Obamacare. So I think that there is at least some reality in his world in terms of how, I know he's a left-wing Democrat, but you might disagree with me.
It's so easy, though, for people from the left and other people just say, yeah, well, you don't care about sick people. Look at Donald Trump doesn't care about poor people. And for some reason, people don't push back on that.
Can I make a point to Dagan?
Go ahead.
Chuck Schumer voted for the 86 Tax Act, which cut the highest rate from 50% to 28%.
There you go.
And it cut the corporate rate from 46 to 34. Chuck Schumer voted for it.
He gets it. He understands the impact of lower taxes.
Well, let me make one other quick point.
He sure does.
Yeah. You know, the Democrats, because they thought Hillary was going to win. So their line for the last 6 weeks has been, Republicans have to cooperate, we have to get things done. Let's see if, you know, now that Donald Trump is the president, whether Democrats will work with. But I think they will. Look, I think out of the gate, some of these things like the tax cut and reforming Obamacare in a marketplace direction.
Democrats are going to come along because they're going to want to ride the coattails of this booming economy and take credit for it. Yeah. So that's why they're going to come along.
Not only that, but there are how many? I think we were looking at these numbers, Arthur. There are a lot of Democratic senators up for re-election in 2 years. And
24.
24.
Be careful, because you say infrastructure spending, and Democrats love spending other people's money.
Well, Republicans do too.
Real quick, before you go, are you going to be the chairman of the economics team?
I really actually don't know. Whatever Donald Trump wants me to do, I will do.
But you're expecting to get a role.
What I want to do is help him get this tax cut passed, the way you did, Arthur, in 1981.
What about you? You're going to go back to Washington?
Maria, come on. I'm 76 years old, for God's sakes. I've got 3 great-grandchildren. I am having so much fun watching Steve Moore and Larry Kudlow make the world a much better place. I couldn't be happier than having those two.
I don't know. People in Nashville want you to help this economy.
Well, we love it. We'll be watching. Art Laffer, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you. Steve Moore,
Thank you, Maria.
Ditto. Always a pleasure. Good to see you, gentlemen. Thank you.